bit about me, and then I was wanting to just run you all through one of my favourite exercises that I do in all my workshops. And I can see a couple of familiar faces, so you will have done it before, but that's okay, because today you get to do it again. But first of all, who am I? As Lionel said, my name's Joan Wilson-Jones, and I had probably a fairly ordinary childhood and upbringing. I was that imaginative, creative child that drove everybody crazy, and always had big dreams, and I always wanted to do big things. And I grew up in a loving, caring family who probably weren't as aligned with my big dreams and my big things. So I was constantly, as a child, sort of I wouldn't say put back in my box, but it was very much about, you know, we're a working class family and you have to be realistic. And I guess realistic was never really a big word in my vocabulary. So I just kept on dreaming and planning. And I left school the day after my 15th birthday because my father was a man of his time and his generation, and he didn't believe in educating girls. So I went to work in a job that I didn't find overly satisfying. And so I went back to night school at some time later. When I was 17 and knew everything. Can you remember being 17 and knowing everything? So when I was 17 and knew everything, I got married, right? As you do. My brain neural pathways hadn't even connected yet, but I thought this was a really good idea. And I'm a committed pacifist and always have been my whole life, and I married a soldier during the Vietnam War, and I was the only person on Puckapunyal Army Base that was protesting against the Vietnam War. Apparently it was not seen in a very positive light. I had 2 beautiful daughters and then ended up, as everybody had predicted, a single mum. But I still had my big dreams and hopes. So I got myself back into education. I am a big believer of learning. I chose to do it in a formal way, but we don't all have to do it formally. And I raised my beautiful girls, and they've turned out to be amazing women, and I'm extraordinarily proud of them. I had some great raw material to work with. They were beautiful young girls, but I also feel very proud of the women that they've become as part of my being their mum, I hope. And then decided that it was time for the big dreams and the big goals. So I donned the backpack and I got the hiking boots and I took off for a year and just wandered aimlessly around the world, doing things that I would absolutely be horrified if my daughters told me they'd done them. You know, hanging out in ashrams with people I'd never met and climbing mountains on my own. But I had a fabulous time. One of my big dreams as a child was to have my own farm. It's beautiful. It's out in the gorgeous Sanford Valley, not far from Lionel, and I have my pony and my donkeys and my alpacas and my border collie dogs, and I grow my own vegetables, and I've just started making soap. So I can't, not soap, candles. Soaps are coming next. I can't wait to get to the second-hand shop next door on the way home because they've got all these beautiful crystal things I can put candles in, you know. And then for a living, because I do actually have to earn money as well. I work as a consultant in the corporate world, as Lionel said. And I go in there telling them that I'm here to talk about communication and leadership and what I say, playing nicely together. And then we start talking about energy fields and nutrition and how we live our life and how our thoughts affect our physiology and our health. And I'll look out and there'll be a whole room full of accountants going, and then I put them through a couple of exercises and then they're right on board, you know. It's sort of, I can see how this works, how what we do and what we think and how we speak affects our life, and how our dreams never have to go. Sometimes they have to wait. I remember years ago going to a presentation for International Women's Day, and the speaker said, what we have to learn as women. As soon as she said that, I sat up because I thought I'm going to have to argue with this, because it's just the way she's phrased it. There's an argument there, isn't it? She said, what we have to learn as women is that we can have anything we like, but we can't have everything. So I finished my meal and my dessert came and I pondered it, and then it clicked. And I don't think it's just for women. I'm addressing the men here as well. We can have everything we want, and we can have it all. We just don't necessarily get to have it all at the same time. Sometimes we have to put some priorities in place. And sometimes as we do that, some of the things we thought we wanted, we don't really want anymore. And I think one of the other things that it's really important for us to learn is how to let go of some of the dreams that are no longer relevant to us. So in my private coaching role, I have a lot of middle-aged clients. I think they come to me because they sort of think, oh, she's middle-aged, she'll understand. I'm not sure what middle age is, really. I mean, I'm planning to live for a lot longer, so I'm hoping I'm, like if I get to live to 140, I'm not middle-aged yet. So that's the good news, isn't it? But they'll come to me, and it's really interesting because they'll say, Joan, I've got everything. I've got the big house. I've got the beautiful family. I've got the job with the corner office and the big salary. I drive a prestige car, and I have these fabulous overseas trips every year. And then they pause and they say, why aren't I happy? And I say, were these your dreams when you were 20? And they say, yeah. And I said, and you've never reviewed them? You've never reflected on them, and now you're 50 or now you're 60 and you're still living the dreams that you had when you were 20. And I'm with you, Heather. We don't necessarily need all that stuff. So the work I do, and especially here at the Relaxation Centre, and as Lionel said in his introduction, like the current program is called How to Reclaim Your Life. We fine-tune each week, we play around with titles. Some of them are a bit different, some of them are sort of a modified version. I've been working here presenting workshops at the Relaxation Centre for, I think it must be about 16 or 17 years. So obviously I don't run the same one all the time because I get very easily bored. So I need to change them to entertain myself a bit. But also life changes, and I want people to come back, and I'm very pleased when I see familiar faces walk in and they say, I'm here for a top-up, or I'm here for a bit of a change, or I'm here for this, or I'm here for that. So my work is, in all of its facets, is very much about how do we live the life we want? How do we live our dreams? Not because they've got it and I want it too, because that's irrelevant, but because I want it. I was having dinner with some friends a few years ago, and these are women I've worked with about 40 years ago. I worked with them. And so we were all 40 years older than we were when we were working together. That's an interesting thing to reflect on, because when we used to meet for dinners, we used to spend the first half hour talking about where our children were at and, you know, what kindergarten they were in or what primary school they were going to. Then that morphed into what university they were going to. And then that morphed into what careers they were choosing. And in recent years, it's been who's putting their parents in nursing homes. It's like we do this full... It's really interesting, isn't it? You know, but anyway, this particular dinner, we're having a conversation. One of the women there had chosen to sell her property and move into one of those lifestyle resorts for the over 55s, and she was very excited about that. And I think it was a good, you know, it's a good decision for her. Wouldn't be a good decision for me. I think I'd drive them mad in one of those places. But I was in the market for a new horse, right? So I was out, you know, scanning ads and test riding horses, and one of the other women, at one point I caught her out the corner of my eye giggling, and I said, what are you doing? She said, oh, you know, she said, there's so-and-so going into a retirement village, which it wasn't really, but it sort of added emphasis to the story. There's so-and-so going into a retirement village, and you're buying a new horse. She said, I'm just amazed at this interesting juxtaposition. And I think for the woman going into the lifestyle village, if we'd said to her, what you need to do now is buy a horse, would have been so stressful for her. And if someone said to me, you know, you need to go into, I mean, I'm not even a cruise person. At the moment, my heart is breaking for those poor people that are trapped on the cruise ship. It's like my worst nightmare. Like, people say to me, you need a break, why don't you go on a cruise? And I said, because I jump overboard. Like, and then I see the news and they say, you know, we get to come out of our cabin for an hour every few days. And I thought, you poor things. It's just, let's just hope that's all resolved soon for everybody. So as I promised you, I want to put you through a little exercise. My workshops are all very practical. They're all very action-based, so you do things when you come to my workshops. But also I really want to emphasise that everything that I present and everything I talk about is completely research-based. And I can give you all of the research and I can give you all of the science. We probably don't have time today, but when you come to workshops, I back it up with all of that. So I've done a lot of, as part from my academic studies, and I've got undergrad and postgrad degrees in various things, but I've also done a lot of certifications and qualifications, mostly in the area of human energy and how we create that energy and how that energy impacts on us. So this is one of the simplest exercises I've ever come across. And it's one of the most powerful. And it is life-changing. I absolutely promise you. I also promise you that there's nothing I introduce in workshops that I don't live myself. So I have tested this one out in some pretty dire circumstances, I can tell you, and I'm here to tell you it works. So if you're a bit confused about its simplicity, just trust me, I'm a consultant. Come with me, okay? And I promise you that I will give you the backup and the research. All I want you to do is I want you to think back over the last 24 hours of your life, and I want you to think of 3 good things that have happened. And it doesn't have to be that, they don't have to be monumental, right? It can be as simple as you had a nice cup of coffee this morning, you're here at the relaxation centre, you got a park just outside. Oh, that was me. I got a park just outside. And it's those simple things. Then I want you to turn to someone near you. In the interests of time, we won't do too much reorganisation. So ideally groups of 2 or 3 at the most, because we want to get through it fairly quickly. And I just want you to tell them your 3 good things. And I want you to observe what happens. Okay? Have fun. Okay, I am going to get you to wind up there, and it's just in the interest of time. If you didn't get to share all your good things, the good news is continuing to think about them is equally as powerful. But I do... Did you feel good? Yeah, do you reckon you feel the same if I said, think of the worst thing that ever happened to you and then tell the person next to you? Do you think that would make us feel the same? It's not rocket science, is it? But how often do we find ourselves defaulting to telling people what's not working? Yeah. And look, don't blame yourselves. Blame is useless anyway. It's all because of our ancestors. If they hadn't been hypervigilant back there eons ago, they would have been eaten by saber-toothed tigers. In fact, the ones that weren't hypervigilant did get eaten by saber-toothed tigers, and they don't have descendants. So the fact that we're all here tells me that we've come down a long line of people who just looked for danger, and in their world they needed to. And we've got that brain wiring. And Heather mentioned the neuroplasticity and how that's now, we know that it's not just about children now, that's all of our lives. And when we change our thinking, we change our brain wiring. When we experience good things, we produce a set of chemicals that supports our immune system and manages our cardiac system and strengthens our digestive system and actually connects the front lobe of my brain to the back part of my brain and allows me to be cleverer, more creative, more resilient, and more intelligent. That happens every time I'm enjoying myself. What we discovered back in the 1950s, that was an incredible decade for a number of reasons. But what we discovered back then was that when we experience good times, we produce these chemicals that are like the best tonic you could ever have. And you don't even need to put gin in it. And when I talk about good times, I produce the same chemicals. When I think about good times, I produce the same chemicals. And what a man by the name of Max Maltz discovered back in his research in the 1950s was whether I'm doing it, thinking about it, or talking about it, I'm producing exactly the same chemicals in exactly the same amount. Guys, there's great power there. We have the power to manage our thinking and to be able to manage the chemical mix in our body. Does this mean we start ignoring bad times? No, this is not the Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm solution. Challenging times need to be processed and they need to be worked through. However, continually whinging and moaning produces chemicals that destroy our health and well-being. You know when you're whinging and moaning, don't you? Do you all know? Because you get the whingy, whiny voice? Yeah. When you're sitting down actively processing and healing, you won't have the whingy, whiny voice. So a man by the name of Martin Seligman has established that if we do 3 good things for 7 days, we will be happier for the next 6 months, irrespective of what happens in our life. And his research has been well documented and is accessible for you if you want to see it. You've done it today. I'm going to invite you to do it for the next 6 days. If at the end of 7 days of 3 good things you are not experiencing any changes in how your life is feeling for you, in terms of your energy and your well-being, I invite you to exercise your right as an adult to stop doing it. So far, I have been running this for probably close to 30 years, and I have not met anyone yet that stopped doing it. I meet people who come up to me and say, I did a workshop with you 15 years ago, and I'm still doing 3 good things. And if I can just leave you with what I think is the best news of all about it, we don't have to get up an hour earlier, we don't have to take it out of gym membership, and we don't have to wear lycra. That has to be the best solution for managing our lives better and moving forward. There's lots more when we work in the workshops, and so I really would invite you to come along if you haven't. And if you have been along to one of my workshops, please come back, because I just love to see you again. And there's always new things, and there's always benefit in reviewing what we've already heard. So thank you very much.